Tina Greenbaum has a 35-year history of working with eating disorders. She started working on a unit back when there was no treatment for compulsive overeating. And now she works with CEOs, actors, actresses, and Olympic athletes to show them the way to mastery under pressure. And she is on today with us to share her specific insights on binge eating. So let's recap real quick, Tina. Define binge eating for us real quick.
So binge eating is what I call eating out of control. Eating sometimes when we don't even mindlessly, or we don't even know what we're doing, or we find we're overeating. But it's basically this idea of control. Yeah.
So how's binge eating different from like stress eating, emotional eating, boredom eating, which I hate when people say that, but I hear all that sort of stuff. How is binge eating different from those?
Binge eating is actually the result of those: eating from stress, eating from boredom, eating from loneliness, eating from habit, eating from
mindlessly eating.
That it results in binging. Or again, I use interchangeably a lot of times compulsive overeating, because it's a compulsive act. It feels out of control.
I feel like a lot of people think that there's an amount that you have to eat. And for weight loss surgery patients, after surgery, they can't eat, at least initially, a lot of food. So they think they're not binge eating, but maybe they're overeating for their surgery. So could you clarify that? Is there a certain amount that you have to eat for it to clarify as binge?
Somebody who's anorexic and eats 3 hard-boiled eggs may feel like they're having a binge.
Okay.
Everything is relative. People who make millions of dollars could feel just as stressed as people who don't earn very much at anything. So it's the way we experience it. And if it feels out of control and it feels obsessive, it's a binge.
Okay. So binge really has to do with the control as opposed to the amount,
I believe.
Okay. That's awesome. Never thought about it that way. That's really interesting. So how do we prevent a binge? Well, let's back up. If somebody finds themselves in the middle of a binge, maybe they've been binge snacking, boredom eating, stress eating, and they're kind of stuck in a cycle. How do we break that cycle first? And then we'll talk about prevention.
Oh yeah, because you use the word prevent, and that is the operative word. Because once a binge starts, if you think it's the same thing of an alcoholic, once they take the first drink, their perception, the brain is actually changed. So you don't have the same level of consciousness and mindfulness that you would, had you not started. So I have to say, and again, your followers would know better, really well. It's really hard to stop a binge in the middle of a binge.
It's hard to stop a binge in the middle of a binge. Okay.
It is. It takes a tremendous amount of will and commitment and desire and consciousness to actually stop behaving in a way that doesn't feel good. And again, you have this confluence of kinds of things. It feels good in the moment because you're satisfying a particular need. And so, sometimes to pull that away feels really, really like you're really depriving yourself. So you have to be able to think forward and think of the consequences of what it is that you're doing, which means that you have to be conscious. So stopping a binge is challenging.
Okay. So what's the first step?
Not impossible, but challenging.
So what would you tell them?
It's to prevent it.
Yeah.
It's to prevent it.
But if they could stop it, if they
could stop it, okay.
If they wanted to stop it, what would they do?
Absolutely. So what we talk about when we talk about emotions, have energy. Okay. And I always go like this. I always think of an arc. Here comes an emotion or a feeling that we don't want to feel. And then we have this conditioned response. And that's what an addiction is. Here's the condition, the trigger, and here's my response. And there's not a lot of thinking going on.
So there's a trigger, and then the response is to eat, in this case.
in this case.
So
right?
that trigger could be an argument, could be bad news, could be loneliness, could be lots of stuff. And then the response is to go eat when you shouldn't. Okay?
Right, because it doesn't solve the problem.
Okay.
Right? And so what we want to do is we want to be able to stop enough time to create a pause so that we can insert thought. So here we have this arc, this conditioned response, and we want to be able to, what am I doing? What's really going on here? Why am I eating? You know, what's the purpose of it? Do I want the consequence of this? Do I want the outcome? What's, you know, again, all these questions that we've been talking about over the last month or two, if you can bring them to mind so that you can actually gain some perspective and choose a different behavior.
So you want to try to insert a pause.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm sitting here.
Pause or a thought.
I'm eating. How do I insert that pause?
Well, it's like I notice. The word notice is like your best friend, because this is without judgment. This is what the definition of mindfulness is. You know, I'm paying attention in the present moment without judgment.
I love that.
So if I can pause enough, I notice that I feel out of control with this food. I notice that I'm eating and I don't really want to be doing that. I notice this and I'm starting to feel really crappy. Whatever it is that you can stop for, and that's why all the stuff that we're talking about is practice and repetition, so that you have these behaviors and these new thoughts in your toolbox. So under stress, you can pull them out. They're like right there for you.
You know, one of the things that I teach my patients, if they have this urge to eat and they know they shouldn't be eating, it's not time to eat, and that they just have an urge, I tell them to just go brush their teeth.
That's a great pause.
It's a great pause. It changes the flavor in your mouth, and things just don't taste as good right after you brush your teeth.
That's right.
So
it's a stop. It's a way to stop. And I think one of the things, if we haven't talked about it, I'll mention it here, but it's wonderful to have a list of things that you could do so that you don't have to think too much. You know, oh, I could go and brush my teeth, or oh, I could walk outside.
Chew gum.
I could chew gum. I could pick up the phone and call somebody I care about. You know, there's many things that one can do to stop that behavior.
They could drink water because it could be thirst. Could
be.
Okay. So it takes practice and repetition to insert that thought to break a binge, right? So how do we prevent it from even starting? That's today's broadcast.
Right. So it is all about prevention. So imagine that you have like a toolbox that you use that's right at your fingertips. So like, for example, like I know that I'm going to so-and-so's house for dinner, or I know it's the weekend, or I know that I'm going out to a restaurant. And I know my danger points. This is the other thing. My vulnerabilities. Not everybody's the same. You know, I may be going to see my in-laws and they trigger me, or my kids, you know, when they're fighting, they and so it's that trigger of getting to know yourself so well that you know the things that are your danger and vulnerability points. Okay, so if I can look ahead, my sister-in-law owns a restaurant and she's a baker, and I love chocolate and she makes a lot of chocolate cake. So before I know that I'm going to the restaurant, or I know that I'm going to her house for dinner, I make a decision ahead of time. What am I going to choose? Am I going to choose to have dessert? Am I going to choose not to have dessert? Am I going to choose to have a sliver? Am I going to choose to have... And so I've already pre-conditioned myself. So when the situation happens, I've already thought about it.
Okay.
There's no surprises.
You know, I read this study, and you can agree with it or disagree with it, but basically, like people on a diet, for example, will decide, choose ahead of time. Let's say you're at a meeting and you know you have a lunch break at noon. And they did a study on this, and you know, are you going to eat the cookie, or not.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
80% of people said they were not going to eat the cookie. But then once they got in line and started going through the routine of getting their food, they picked up the
Mm-hmm.
cookie and ate it anyway. Most of them just ate
Mm-hmm.
it anyway. So how
Right.
successful is really pre-planning or pre-deciding or precognition?
Well, none of this stuff is easy.
Right.
And I think it goes along with anything else that you make a decision or don't make a decision. I mean, I think and I know that there's like an 80-20 rule or a 90-10 rule, that 20% of the people actually follow through and do the work, or 10%, and 80 or 90% don't.
They don't. That's true.
They don't. They don't. You and I talked about, how many people buy programs and don't finish them, and how many people do things and say they're going to do. And
I'm guilty of
so,
that. I buy a lot of programs and don't follow through.
Well, okay. So again, what I would say is that you have not really made that commitment or that decision to yourself ahead of time.
Okay.
I just bought a program recently, and but I'm totally committed to it. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy, and it's taking a lot more time than I wanted it to take. And I thought I was going to, and I'm not. But I'm so committed because I want the outcome. I want the outcome. I go back and forth over and over and over. Then we have to be able to throw our kind of mind forward and see what it is that we truly, truly, truly value and desire. And this is what's going to separate the people who are successful and the people who are not.
So people who suffer from binge eating, I just did a poll, and there's 83% of people still suffer from binge eating after weight loss surgery, according to that poll I did. So how do we get them to commit to the outcome? What is the outcome? What do we need to remind them?
Well, I think each person, I don't know that we can get them to do anything, because everybody has to make this decision on their own. But what I like to help people do is envision what it is. I mean, really spend some time and envisioning what it is that you actually want.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So
and on my quiz, I asked that question: what would life look like if you were able to, control your eating and manage your stress? And without exception, people have amazing ideas of what they want for themselves. Maybe they don't think it's possible. Maybe they don't know how to get there. But visualization is a powerful tool. And when we visualize really, really, really carefully, like what it is that we want, what it is that we want to look like, how do we want to feel? And we practice that every day, every day, every day. And that becomes, people talk about affirmations, and I think affirmations are good as long as every part of you is in agreement that this is what you really want. Otherwise, they're just words. They're just
Tony Robbins teaches a lot of that too. It's like if you can pair an action with an emotion, you're more likely to do it.
That's right. That's right. So what he's talking about is bringing in all the senses. I can see it, I can feel it, I can taste it, I can smell it, and you that's what vision boards are about. People make vision boards, and they make pictures, pulled from magazines, and really kind of where am I going? And so this becomes the guiding star. A lot of times what we do in life is we just kind of, we go along and we don't know where we're going. We don't have a direction. People with careers who are struggling with trying to figure them out. These are not easy things to do. So they really take some time because this is the way it is. For those of us that are kind of energy oriented, whatever you send out comes back.
Right.
Whatever you send out comes back, right? So if we send out a wishy-washy message, maybe I'll eat that chocolate chip cookie, maybe I won't eat that chocolate chip cookie. Well, you've already diminished your possibility. I mean, it's most likely that you're going to go for it.
I want to give you a common one that I think is really wishy-washy. It's like, I sure hope I don't eat that cookie. I sure hope, I sure hope they're serving something healthy at this meeting. I think that's wishy-washy.
It is wishy-washy because it's putting it out of your control.
Exactly.
Right? No matter what comes your way, when you're solid within yourself and that you really believe in what you're doing, nobody can push you off of it.
So let's give the viewers some examples, right? So let's say today, you have a lunch meeting at
Mm-hmm.
work,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting ready for the morning. You're putting up your hair and makeup.
Right.
What should they be visualizing in their head about this lunch hour meeting they're about to
Well,
have?
number one is I like to think about what's the worst case scenario.
Okay.
There's very little that's on my meal plan that I want to eat. What would I do if that were true?
Mm-hmm.
Well, what I would do if I were really serious about my, my weight loss and my maintenance, I would bring something with me.
Okay.
I would prepare ahead of time, and just in case, I have an ace in the hole. I have food that I can eat and that I feel good about, and then I leave that luncheon meeting and say, "Hey, I'm good. I'm good." That's the first thing that I would do if I worst case scenario. Always have something healthy with you,
Mm-hmm.
so that if you're really hungry and there's not good options, that you have an option for yourself.
Come prepared.
Come prepared.
In my book, Ultimate Gastric Sleep Success, I wrote about a woman who lost 200 pounds because all she did was drink water and eat from a box. Every day, she just put, like, her entire food for the day was in that box.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only thing she would eat. Now, is that good, or is that getting back to being obsessive about food in a
Well,
bad way?
we have to kind of ask her, did it work for her?
Well, she lost 200 pounds. She was quite happy.
And was she happy, with the way her life was going?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's what, a lot of doctors put people on meal plans, shakes and
Because
this and that.
the devil's advocate would say, yeah, Tina, that sounds great, but I have so many business meetings. We're always eating out. I can't just walk into a restaurant with my own food. They wouldn't let me in. I'm like,
well, again, it's a choice. I wouldn't want that life, personally. I like the options of kind of going to a luncheon or doing a lot of business things. But I'm disciplined enough within myself that I will make the choices. Not all the time. I'm not talking about perfection,
sure.
But I don't think honestly, I was raised by somebody. My mother was 4'11" and 3/4, and she weighed 160 pounds. And my sister and my mother and I were always on diets. She was overweight, but she could 800 calories a day is what she needed to be able to lose weight.
Less than that.
Less than that. Her metabolism was like non-existent.
Right.
So I grew up becoming just so mindful of everything that went into my mouth.
Right.
And I'm still that way.
So let me ask you something. You said you're disciplined enough to know what you eat, right? So a lot of obesity patients would say, I wish I had the willpower. I wish I had the willpower to resist. And how do you
okay, so it goes back to the same
versus discipline.
So if you think about willpower only goes so far. Okay, so if this is the paradigm, should I eat? Shouldn't I eat? Should I eat? Shouldn't we're on the same thing, and sometimes this wins, sometimes this. We always have to go outside of the problem. And that's why I talk about what it is that you really, really, really want. Because that's more powerful than, this one little, extra thing or a binge or this is what I want this so badly that I'm willing to do. I use the word discipline. I am, but it's really, I'm always thinking of the consequences. For me, it's like, what do I want?
So let me ask you,
if I want it badly enough. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. So would it be a good way to prevent a binge would be to write down the consequences or things you don't want in your life if you were to binge?
Well, if we go into the unconscious, you got to do what you do want, because the unconscious will do whatever you tell it. And if you tell it to don't do something, it'll do it.
Well, it doesn't understand the negative.
It doesn't understand the negative. So we always have to put it in a positive.
Well, that sounds really self-helping.
This is what I'm choosing.
A lot of self-help people are always talking about find your why. Find your why,
Correct. That's right. It's really important. Why get up in the morning? Why work so hard? Why are you doing what you're doing? Why am I doing? Each one of us, if we don't have a why, and we're not really aware of it, we're just sort of going from day to day. There's no purpose. I know exactly why I'm doing this, exactly why I'm on this, with you and working with you. And It's not just one reason. There's several of them, but they're clearly identified.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's another wonderful exercise. Why do I want to lose this weight? You know, if we don't have a really good reason that's strong enough, that chocolate chip cookie is going to win.
Yeah, you know, you think so, but like for example, diabetics, right? They know eating junk food is bad for them, but they still eat it. And they just take insulin to drive their blood sugars back down. Why would they do that?
Again, I think it's a level of pulling away sort of these, I call them the veils of illusion. You know, just like I hope that there's going to be, you know, I hope that I'm going to be okay. And I hope, and we don't take full responsibility.
So it goes
for
back to
our own
responsibility.
behaviors. And I create my own experience. And so if I don't want to live on insulin, or maybe the amount of insulin, I'm going to have to do something maybe dramatic. I'm going to have to make some big changes.
Okay.
See, I think what, you know, the gist of all the things that we're talking about and that we've been talking about is, I really want people to know, this is not an easy path. It's a challenge. It takes courage.
Right.
It takes commitment. It takes self-care. It takes all these things that you may not be used to because maybe you weren't trained. Maybe that's not the way that you were raised. So few of us were raised like that. And so there's a level of survival, but if we want to get beyond survival and we want to get into the higher, you know, wonderful things that life has to offer, we have to put the work in. I just don't know another way around it. You know, we can support and guide, but at some level, it has to be important enough for each and every person to make those choices every single day, every day. And that's what, you know, in AA, they say, you know, it's one day at a time because that's what it is. Today, I choose this.
Today, I choose not to drink. Today, I choose not to binge.
Well, no, today I choose to eat healthfully is the way that I would do it.
That's right.
Right? Right?
That's right. Today, I choose to eat healthily. So to prevent a binge, what I'm hearing you say is that we have to envision our choices and be disciplined enough to take ownership of our choices. And we do that by getting connected to our real reasons and things we really want for our lives.
Right. And at the same time, getting to know ourselves so well, because the other thing that I, you know, mentioned earlier is, what are your triggers? What are the things that kind of get you going? And then those are the things that really need the growth and the transformation, which gets a little bit more complicated. You know, it's not, because sometimes we could tell ourselves things and we do it anyway, like what you're talking about. And so we have to have the tools to be able to dig down a bit deeper and really ask yourself, what's really going on? What's really going on here?
So,
yeah,
I think that's amazing insight. You've been working on an online course for those people who might want more help. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. So what I did is I went through exactly what I would do is if you came to see me for the very first time and we didn't know each other, and take you through my 5 steps of how to kind of go from this level of non-awareness to really being very, very conscious and very aware and making really good choices. And so we went through, and I don't know the order of it. Maybe you have it really in front of you, Duc, but we talked about how to prevent a binge. We talked about mindful eating. We talked about relaxation, getting the nervous system calm, because the nervous system has to be calm in order for you to be conscious enough to make good choices.
Yeah, they were really great videos.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
you talked a lot about the mind-body connection in the online course too.
Yes.
So how important is the mind-body connection?
Critical. Critical, because the body stores all the feelings. We have, you know, and it's in the cells energetically. It's really these old memories are really, there's signatures that are in the cells. And when we get triggered, it's like, boom, it's like there is a cataclysmic experience that happens in the body. And
go ahead.
Yes. And so once we get to familiar and we can kind of get below the neck, because in our culture, that's where we live, is up here, and really start to get to know ourselves. And, somebody said to me, it's actually somebody in our course, the thing that you and I are doing, he said, I don't know when I feel stressed. I don't even know what it feels like.
It's because they're stressed all the time?
He just doesn't have the awareness.
Interesting.
So the assignment that I gave him is, let's start paying attention and see if we could start to name what's happening to you. Because he said, I don't even realize it until much later.
Yeah.
So yes, this connection is critical.
Just for the viewers real quick, I pinned the website there on the video, sleepacademy.com/binge eating. You can also do www.drvbinge.com, and that'll take you to the online course, and you can see more about it. We're running a Mother's Day special for you, and we'll keep talking here in a second. But Tina's been so gracious. How much do you normally charge, Tina? Like $500 an hour per session? Yeah. And $5,000 for your workshops and stuff like that. But I got you to offer this for $97, this online course for $97. And then on top of that, Tina threw in a Mother's Day offer. What's the Mother's Day offer?
$47.
$47,
$47.
Guys. $50 off. So $47, you put in a coupon code MOM, M-O-M, all capital, and you can get her online course for $47, okay? So just click that link I pinned there. Let's talk a little bit more about your insight about the course. So we did the mind-body connection. You also talk in that course about breathing, right? How important is it breathing?
So the breathing, your breath is the only mechanism, voluntary mechanism that you have that can actually change your nervous system. Mm-hmm. So we have two nervous systems. We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. Mm-hmm. And the sympathetic nervous system is the one that gets activated when we get stressed. Mm. And as soon as that, as soon as that gets activated, then we get this cascade of hormones and steroids and cortisol and all the things that then can over time lead us to stress-related illnesses. Mm. So when you learn how to use your breath and you use it preventatively first, and then it's always there for you whenever you need it, then number one, you've created more room in the body. So when we get stressed, the muscles tighten up. Yeah. And when we're relaxed, the muscles are much more open. There's more oxygen.
That sounds like you could use that. And what did you call it again? What type of breathing? It was
yogic breathing.
Yogic breathing. That's right.
It's a 3-part breath, right?
Yeah, and you can use this yogic breathing. Do you think to stop a binge if you're in the middle of a binge?
Absolutely.
Really?
I mean, I have stories of things that have helped me. If we have time, I can tell a little story.
Sure.
Which is kind of one of the, I had breast cancer, and I had a test when they went to do the biopsy. They came at me with this wire, and they said no anesthesia.
Yeah, it's called needle localization.
Yeah, whatever it was. It was enough to make me faint, literally, almost. So 3 times they came at me, and then I said to them, I said to the nurse, I said, you know what? Let me just lie down on the floor and let me do my breathing, and I'll tell you when I'm ready for this test. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what they did. They walked out, they closed the lights, they left me there for about 5 minutes, and I said I was ready. And I just got into this deep state of relaxation using that breath. Mm-hmm. And then the gate came at me. I swear I did not feel one thing.
Wow.
Not one thing.
That's how powerful that breathing technique is, huh? And really you teach powerful. That on the...
That's just one story.
You teach that in the online course. That's really amazing. That's really cool. I was editing your videos there, and you have that one story about there's one section where you talk about how do you prevent, like, you keep re-slipping into a binge, and you tell the pothole story. Mm-hmm. Can you share that pothole story?
Sure. So we're talking a lot about behavior change. This is really the bottom line of the essence of what we're saying. And so to have an expectation that it's going to, you know, we're just going to do it one time is a little unrealistic. So imagine that there's a pothole that's down the street, and you see this pothole and you're walking towards it and you see it, but you walk right into it. And then you get out and you say, oh, God, this pothole, you know, next time I'm not going to walk into that pothole. And then you're walking down the street, and the second time you do the same thing. And by the third time you know, there's a pothole down the street.
Pay attention.
You're going to pay attention to that pothole. And the third time, maybe you walk into it again, but by the fourth or the fifth time, you know, I see that pothole and I walk right around it. And that's the way behavior change happens over time. You know, and once you learn how to do it once on one behavior, you can do it on the next and the next. And, you know, so again, everything that I teach here, this is for life. This is not just for binge eating. This is for everything in your life.
So everything in that course that you teach, you can use for other things other than binge eating.
Absolutely.
So if a patient calls it stress eating or emotional eating instead, it would still apply, right?
Absolutely. More than, and yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I like the fact that it's an online course because they have access to it over and over again, so they can rewatch the lessons over and over again, like you said, because we keep making the same mistakes, right? And I think that when you're in a different brain spot, when you know, you'll learn the information differently depending on where you are in the stage of your recovery or your weight loss journey. Don't you agree? So like sometimes the videos like,
oh my goodness, yeah.
You know, it was so weird.
I'm smiling because if you think about it, we're like a spiral. So here, let's say we're hearing this material for the first time, and then we apply some of it, and we, you know, and then what you're saying is we come back and we revisit it. Now we got a little bit more awareness, and then we come back another time and a little bit more awareness. So we keep revisiting ourselves. We only have so many themes, and each one of us has our own story and our own themes. And then as we keep visiting those themes and we get to know ourselves better and better and better, it's like, I see you. You're not going to catch me this time. And then the best thing that happens over time is the body doesn't even get triggered. So and that's really been my whole career is about that. Yeah.
Let me kind of push you to the test a little bit. So let's say this online course, we call it How to Stop Binge Eating, but let's say someone struggles with like marriage and it seems like the marriage triggers them. How could they use this course to maybe help them with their marriage?
Well, a lot of different ways. First is you begin to start to notice the kinds of interchanges that you're having with your partner that cause you stress. Give an example. I'm remarried. I was married for a very long time to one person, and he was very moody. And so when I was younger, and I got married at 23, he would walk into the house and then and I was in a great mood and then my mood would just go down. And then one day I just said, this is really interesting. I was in a really good mood before you came home. Why am I now? I didn't do anything, I didn't do anything. So what I began to recognize is that I would get into his energy and I would just kind of follow it. And so I needed to create some kind of barrier where he could have his energy and be moody, and I could still be in a good mood. And so I created an energetic shield.
Yeah, and you talk about that energetic shield in your online course. That was really interesting. When I was editing that part of the video, I was like, man, this sounds like something I would say. Because
there's all kinds of tricks.
One of the things that weight loss surgery patients deal with a lot is like, I keep telling them, you got to get rid of all the negative people in your life. And sometimes they'll say, I hear you, Dr. Vuong, but it's hard when it's your son or your daughter or your mother-in-law. What would you say to them?
Well, just exactly what I said to my last client who just introduced her new boyfriend to her family, and they were making all kinds of comments about, well, he wasn't very friendly, and she's been working with me long enough that she didn't get triggered. She got to see that was their perception and not her perception.
Mm-hmm.
And so with family, it depends on who it is. You know, there's some families that are very extremely toxic.
Mm.
And sometimes we do have to cut off. We do have to cut off relationships because it's so harmful.
Mm.
Other times we just sort of know who they are. We can sort of, oh, when I go to this one's house and she says this or he says that, it's like, oh, that's my sister, that's my brother, and so on. So I don't have one, you know, always never rule, but it's really about how it affects you and how you can separate yourself enough that you can live your life.
Do you have time for a couple of questions? I want to read some viewer questions.
I'd love them.
Yeah, okay. So real quick, Jenny Lamberto, I just purchased your content. Thank you, Jenny, for your purchase. Cynthia Dales just purchased. Thank you so much. That's awesome. So Trudy Peterson has a question. So is binge eating something that is not on your plan, or is it opening a bag or a container of something and eating it all, unable to stop until it's gone and throw away the container? I think we answered that earlier, but could you summarize that?
Well, I think she's asking that she knows the answer to that question for herself in some way, shape, form, or another.
Yeah.
Because, right?
Yes.
It's where does it get to be out of control? That's really the question for each person. Where does it feel out of control?
So
if I know that I'm eating, sometimes, I just want to add this. Sometimes if I know that there's a trigger food that I have, and I know I have my trigger foods, again, I'm going to make a decision ahead of time. I'm going to take one handful and I'm going to close it up and I'm going to walk away. And then I get to enjoy it. And there's a period of time where I know I want more. And if I don't allow myself to have more, I give myself that little bit of space and that urge goes away.
Diana Brenizer says, you don't become overweight overnight. It's going to take a long time to change behaviors to prevent it. Well, we talked about that, right?
And it may.
We agree with that. Deborah Schaefer has a question. Will this content be helpful for those who are hungry or feel hungry all the time?
It's a good question. I would say
what yes, based on what based on my having to watch all the videos and edit them, I think it would be great. But go ahead, your answer. I think it would really help.
Well, again,
hungry.
Yeah, and we have to figure out what that hungry is all about.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean?
And again, again, if I am hungry all the time, there may be a need that I have that it turns into hunger. It may not really be hunger. It's just the way that I've learned how to interpret it.
Super
and
good.
So I'm always, I'm always like, I go like this because I like to nail it. I like to nail like what's really going on. Hunger is a big word, and binging is a big word, and let's pull it apart.
So if it takes time to pull it apart, and one of the things that you're offering, if they sign up for this course, is they can select to have a consultation with you, right? If they choose to purchase a consultation with you at a steep discount, what you're offering.
I know. Yes. Yes.
That's because I twisted your arm.
So when you talk about my why am I doing this?
Yeah, why are you doing
because
this?
I love you guys, and I just know that there are these things that can really, really, really be helpful. And, if I can help you in that way and you can really benefit, then that's a win.
So guys, when you're signing up for this online course, just click the link, the pinned comment there, and that'll take you. You can learn more about it, but you'll be given an option of doing a live video call with Tina at a steep discount. So I would not pass up that opportunity. There's a couple more questions here. Okay, Brandy Gale, how do I get out of my head? This is one of my patients, by the way. How do I get out of my head in the moment? I mean, in the moment, what I want most is that cookie or whatever, and nothing else seems more important. That's a good question.
It's a great question. One of the things that I would suggest is pay attention to your feet.
Your feet.
And you might ask me why. Your feet, you want to be grounded. Okay, we make good decisions when we're grounded. And when we're stressed and we're in the middle of something, our energy is like way up here and we're disconnected. We're disconnected from our hearts and we're disconnected from our feelings. And so just kind of stomp around for a little bit, you know, and just talk to yourself a little bit. I really want that cookie, but wow, what do I really want? And feel your feet. Just feel them planted firmly into the ground. And, you know, one of the other things that I could suggest is for those of people that have done yoga, there's a pose called the mountain pose.
Oh yeah.
You know, where you're standing really nice and tall and your energy is, your power center is right in your belly. And you start to feel that, you know, your legs are energized and your power center is like, I can do this. I can do this.
So get grounded.
And then you begin to get grounded and start to feel your own real power. That's that you amazing. Have greater power than the cookie.
I'm more powerful than the cookie.
I'm more powerful than the cookie, right?
For those of you who are interested in purchasing the course, this is a Mother's Day special, $47. Don't forget the coupon code MOM. And next week it'll be $97. So you're saving 50% off. That was very generous of Tina to offer. But I also wanted to remind people that the course won't be available until Mother's Day because I got so inspired. I want to add some of my own videos to your videos to kind of bring it back to the weight loss surgery community. And you just made me remember I wanted to do to talk about grounding. It's a power pose. I want people to give a power pose. Sharon Lewis Torres has a question. How is that not like a drug addict allowing yourself to have a handful of pills and be done for the day?
I didn't quite get that.
You know, I think the comment about the cookie, I can have one cookie and then walk away. How is that not like an alcoholic or a drug addict thinking they can have one drink or one pill and be done?
You know, everybody needs to know themselves. If you have a real sugar addiction and you know that one cookie is going to do you in, then maybe not have the one cookie.
Yeah, I think self-awareness is super important.
That's the bottom line. Everybody's different. You know, everybody needs to know themselves really well to know, you know, I can or I can't. But sugar addiction is like an alcohol addiction. Yes.
You know, it's interesting because I became self-aware about 5 years ago that I was really passionate about the weight loss surgery community. And I saw a huge missing information and support for the bariatric community. So I really have, I mean, in the last 8 years, I've written, you know, 10 more books, and I've created 6 online courses. I have 400 videos on YouTube. So I'm really about creating content and giving people tools. And I'm just so honored and blessed to have you in my life, Tina, and that you're willing to do this for my community, creating this online course. This is a brand new online course you created just for my community, right?
I did. That's right. Exactly.
And why, it was fun. Why did you feel the need to do that other than me bugging you?
Well, as I said, you know, women with eating disorders it's actually now going on 36 years. 1983 is when I graduated got my MSW and did my first, got my first job at that Washington Hospital Center. And I got to know women, mostly, not all women, certainly some men, so intimately. And I saw such hope and such creativity and intelligence and it just hurt me so much to see that, wow. And that's how I got into the yoga stuff. I said, wow, if I could get these young women to do this, then maybe they wouldn't need their eating disorder. So there's a place in my heart for your community. And when you and I started to talk and it started to bring back, and I realized that everything that I do, and I said this early on, everything that I do and everything that I teach comes from this community. Because, you know, this community was my best teacher. All the, you know, depression and bipolar disorder and borderline personality disorder and, you know, boundary issues and
everything
everything that, you know, I needed to learn if I were to be successful. And I wanted to be successful. I always want to be successful at what I'm doing. I needed to get smarter and I needed to figure this out because nobody was teaching me.
Yeah.
And so this one piece, and you know, I think this is a good piece to kind of close with. My whole career has been about how do I help somebody experience themselves differently, because the body gets triggered before the mind. That's why it's so hard, because we could talk about it, but if we don't have that experience of the body experience, and know, oh God, I feel my neck and my shoulders are starting to get really tight. What's going on here? And I know for me, that's when I feel controlled, that's where I feel my stress.
Yeah, you talk
so
about
I feel
that.
this, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? Yeah. And then I can nail it. I can name it. I'm feeling out of control over here. I'm feeling out of control over here.
You do a great job of explaining that in your online course that you created. So I wanted to clarify for a couple of people, because they're commenting, the access to the course starts on Mother's Day, because I want to shoot some videos and add content for her to make it even more robust, because her content was so good. I had to respond. But then after Mother's Day, you'll have access to the course for a lifetime, for as long as the Kajabi stays in business, I guess. And but the special, the Mother's Day special, $47 special, ends this weekend on Mother's Day. So don't hesitate to get it. Cynthia Dills said maybe a wrong email. I can definitely do that for you, Cynthia. Give it to your Sleep Academy. That's awesome. Hold on, a bunch of comments just came in here. So to get the course, it's the pinned comment here on the video, or you can go to drvbinge.com, drvbinge.com, and that should also take you to the course. All right. Okay. I think. All right. Kathy Brunix just purchased. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Yep. So we're super excited to have you guys. Don't miss out on this opportunity. Again, I just want to wrap it up, Tina, by saying thank you so much for your time. You've been very generous, and I'd love to have you back at a later date and do this all over again. What do you think?
We'll be back.
All right.
That'd be great. And it'd be really, really great to hear the results of how people have done from now until I come back again.
That's awesome.
So
awesome.
We like results.
Have a great weekend, and
thank you.
Have a great Mother's Day.
Thank you. And happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there.
All right. Bye.